For the second part of solving radical equations, I'm going to show you how to solve radical equations with two radicals and also radical equations with rational exponents. The same three steps apply. We're still going to clean up outside of the house when we have rational exponents. The difference here is that the house doesn't look as much like a house, I guess. It looks more like parentheses with an exponent. So this particular house doesn't have any garbage outside of it. There's nothing in the yard. So we're going to start by, then we're going to tear down the house. The way we tear down a house with a rational exponent is we take each side of the equation to the reciprocal power. So we're going to raise this, it's currently to the 5/2. We're going to raise both sides to the 2/5 power. We're allowed to do that as long as we do it to both sides of the equation. And our exponent would become 5 times 2 is 10 over 10, and that's just 1. So this side of the equation becomes x squared plus 5x plus 5. And the other side of the equation, we would do the 5th root of 1, which is 1, and then 1 squared is still 1. I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides, so I get x squared plus 5x plus 4. And now I'm doing a product sum. So this is a quadratic equation. We're going to do a product sum. The product is 4 and the sum is 5. So I'm going to use 1 times 4 to make 5. And so that means that this equation becomes x plus 1 and x plus 4. And our two solutions would be x equals -1 and x equals -4. Those aren't that different from solving with a radical. It's just that instead of raising it to a power, we're going to raise it to that fractional exponent. Here's a second example. I'm looking just at the left side of the equation and I notice that the yard is cleaned up. So I'm going to solve that. I'm going to take down that house. That house is to the 3/2 power. So I'm going to raise both sides to the 2/3 power to undo that exponent. And when I do that, I notice that I get 6 over 6 here, so this would be x plus 18. And on the other side, I get x minus 2 to the 6 over 3, which is the same thing as to the 2nd power. So I can write this as just squared. I can square this out, but I have to remember that I would be multiplying x minus 2 times x minus 2. So when I do that, I would either use a box or I would distribute to make sure that I don't forget any terms. And that becomes x squared minus 4x plus 4 because of this box here. And then this becomes x plus 18. I'm now solving a quadratic, so I'm going to move all my terms over to the other side so that everything is equal to 0. I'm subtracting x, so this becomes -5x. I'm subtracting 18, so this becomes -14. Now I'm doing a product sum. The product is -14. The sum is -5. So I'm thinking of things that multiply to be 14, like -14 and 1, or -7 and 2. Oh, that's going to work. So I write this as x minus 7 and x plus 2. That means that my two solutions are x equals 7 or x equals -2. If you had any garbage on the outside of the house, you'd want to make sure you clean that up first. But our process is still 1, clean up outside, 2, tear down the house, In this case, the way we tear down the house is we raise it to the reciprocal exponent and then clean up the inside, which brought about a quadratic equation, so that was kind of a lot. When you have two radicals, things get pretty crazy pretty quickly. So be patient with yourself if you're solving an equation with two radicals. These are not easy problems, but they do come up, so I'm going to show you how to do it. First of all, I have two houses, and I want to clean up the outside of one of the houses first. It's not wrong to choose either one. I'm going to choose to clean up outside of square root of x plus 9. So in order to clean up the outside of that house, right now I have square root of x plus 9 minus square root of 2x equals 3. I'm going to add the square root of 2x to both sides of the equation so that I don't have any garbage next to the house that I'm about to tear down. So I'm going to make this a square root of 2x. This becomes square root of x plus 9, and the other side of the equation becomes 3 plus square root of 2x. So that step was to clean up the outside of the house. Next, I'm going to tear down the house. So I'm going to take this to the second power, and I'm also taking the other side of the equation to the second power. On the left, I've torn down that house, so this side of the equation becomes x plus 9. On the right, I'm going to make a box. And this becomes square root of 4x squared, which is the same thing as 2x. I know that x is positive because I was taking the square root of 2x earlier, so I'm going to use that as a positive number. So this becomes 9 plus 6 square root of 2x plus 2x. Okay, now I'm not ready to clean up everything yet, but I have this house. I need to clean up the outside of that house. So that's next. I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides in order to clean up that house. And I'm also going to subtract 9 from both sides. That's to clean up outside of the square root of 2x house. I get negative x equals 6 root 2x because the 9's happened to subtract away. The outside of the house is not yet cleaned up, so I'm going to get rid of this 6. And I get negative x over 6 is equal to the square root of 2x. I'm going to clean up the outside. I'm going to tear down the house now. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tear down that house by raising both sides to the second power. When I do that, I get x squared over 36 equals 2x. And I don't really like looking at that fraction, so I'm actually going to get rid of that fraction by multiplying this side of the equation by 36. And I'm also going to multiply this side of the equation by 36. So I get x squared equals 72x. I have a quadratic. I'm going to move all of my stuff over to one side of the equal sign. So I have x squared minus 72x equals 0. Now I'm going to factor, but the factoring I'm doing this time is a little bit different. I have a greatest common factor. So I'm going to take x out, and then I have x minus 72 equals 0. It's still a product of two things. So if the x is equal to 0, then the product would be equal to 0. Or if the x is equal to 72, the product would be equal to 0. So I have two apparent possible solutions. They look like solutions, but we're going to have to check to see if they're extraneous. So my two possible solutions are x equals 0 and x equals 72. I'm checking for extraneous by plugging those in. So my equation is the square root of x plus 9 minus the square root of 2 times x equals 3. And I'm going to plug 0 into that. And when I do, welcome, I get the square root of 9. I'll be with you in a second. Minus 0 equals 3, which is true, and I like that equation. I'm going to do the same thing, but with 72. I get something plus 9 minus square root of 2 times x equals 3. I'm plugging in 72 this time. So I get the square root of 81 minus the square root of 144. The square root of 81 is 9. The square root of 144 is 12. And so this solution is actually not a solution, it's extraneous, because I got a false answer at the end. Right, that is solving rational equations, radical equations. All right, good luck, have fun.